Imagine this. You're not stepping into a glamorous world of treasure maps and parrots perched on your shoulder. You're stepping into the suffocating, chaotic, and utterly miserable world of real historical piracy. And trust me, it's nothing like the stories. The adventure you think you're signing up for? It's darker, louder, and smells far worse than anything your imagination could cook up. It usually begins with bad luck. Maybe you were a sailor already, working trade routes, carrying cargo through the Caribbean. Hard work, but at least it was steady. Then, one morning, a silhouette appears on the horizon. At first it looks harmless, maybe even broken, but it moves across the water like something alive. Before you can blink, cannon fire rips through your ship. Splinters slice through the air, men scream, and in the chaos, pirates board. They're not the playful rogues of bedtime stories. They come howling, brandishing rusted cutlasses and muskets that belch smoke and fire. You don't fight back. Most don't. You raise your hands, hoping mercy still exists out here. But mercy, in this world, has its own meaning. The lucky ones are forced aboard, clothes stripped away, dignity shredded. You're handed rags and boots that squelch with every step. Congratulations, you've just been drafted into one of the most brutal professions on Earth. Your first night on deck makes you question whether death would have been kinder. The floor rocks endlessly beneath you, the boards you sleep on reek of mildew, and every corner seems alive with mold, rats, or snoring men. Hunger gnaws at you. Food isn't food, it's slop made by someone called Cookie, a man who tosses questionable animal bits into a pot and boils them into defeat. You gag it down because starving feels worse. Historically, this wasn't rare. Many pirates weren't volunteers chasing freedom, they were pressed into service, kidnapped into a floating prison where saying no meant being beaten, tossed overboard, or worse. Once you're on the ship, there's no polite resignation letter. You're in it until you die, or until something sharp finds you first. But here's the strange part. Beneath all the violence and chaos, pirate ships had rules. Articles of agreement, they called them. Every man got a share of plunder. Decisions could be made by vote, and even the captain could be replaced. In its own twisted way, it was democracy at sea, except the ballots were fists, knives, and sometimes pistols. Still, fairness doesn't fill your belly. You only get your promised share of gold after a successful raid, and raids aren't guaranteed. Until then, you scrub decks, patch sails, and pray the ship doesn't collapse under your feet. The sea is merciless. Storms, naval patrols, even rival pirates wait to swallow you whole. And when veterans tell you the sea takes what it wants, you believe them. One man who says it is missing fingers, and his grin whistles through a cracked tooth. You don't ask questions. Below deck, life is even worse. Privacy is non-existent. Dozens of men packed shoulder to shoulder, breathing the same sour air. Hammocks drip with mildew, fleas crawl across your skin, and the smell, oh, the smell. Imagine rotten cheese, wet dogs, and sewage blended into one choking perfume. If hell had a scent, this ship bottled it. You start noticing nicknames. Everyone has one. There's Peggy Joe, missing an eye. Knuckles, who collects teeth for reasons you don't want to know. And Whisper, a man who never speaks, but never stops smiling. Eventually, they'll give you a name too, usually something cruel born out of humiliation. It's not affection, it's ownership. Food doesn't comfort you. Salted meat that crumbles into bone, biscuits crawling with insects, stale cabbage that should have been buried months ago. Water is rationed, and it tastes like rust. Rum is everywhere, not for celebration, but for survival. Everyone drinks, not because it's fun, but because sobriety makes this reality unbearable. And then come the chores. scrubbing the deck with sand, repairing sails while clinging to swaying ropes, or worst of all, cleaning the bilge, the dark belly of the ship where all the waste gathers. Down there, it's ankle-deep in filth. You scoop muck that smells like despair itself, and sometimes you swear the shadows are alive. One sailor claims he saw a crab with 3 eyes. You don't know whether to laugh or cry. Time begins to dissolve. Days and nights blur, marked only by the horizon that never gets closer. You count stars, whisper to yourself just to hear a human voice. Loneliness seeps into your bones. Even the ocean feels like it's mocking you. This is piracy, not the romantic freedom of novels, but a grinding existence of hunger, filth, and fear. Some historians argue that pirates chose this life willingly, seeking liberty outside the suffocating order of navies and kings. Others believe coercion was far more common. But if you're the one down here, scrubbing sludge while your stomach growls and your skin rots, the answer doesn't matter. Because by now, you understand the truth. You didn't just lose your old life, you lost the idea of home itself. The pirate ship is your coffin, drifting endlessly, and every wave that crashes against the hull whispers the same warning: you're never going back.
You think you're ready for life at sea. You picture treasure, freedom, the horizon stretching out forever. But the reality? The reality is waking up every morning in a floating coffin, where the walls sweat, the boards creak, and the stink never goes away. The air itself tastes of salt, rot, and hopelessness. You tell yourself it's just water and wind, but the sea is cruel. She doesn't care about you. She doesn't care about anyone. You're hungry. You're always hungry. The ship's stores are nothing but hardtack that could break a man's jaw, biscuits riddled with maggots, and salted meat that smells older than the ocean itself. You try not to look at what's crawling in it. You eat in the dark, tell yourself it's just crumbs or pepper, and force it down. If you're lucky, it stays in your stomach. If not, the rail's right there, and the sea takes it back. Some call it ship's fare. You call it punishment. Thirst is worse. You drink grog, water and cheap rum mixed together so foul it strips the back of your throat. Fresh water doesn't stay fresh long. Barrels grow slimy, green, alive with things you can't name. You hold your breath and drink it anyway. What else can you do? Better sick than dry. And then there's the boredom. No one tells you how boring it is. Endless days of nothing but waves and sky until you swear you'll go mad from the sameness. Hours blur together. Men play dice with bones, carve little marks into the wood, sing the same song over and over until it doesn't sound like music anymore, just noise. Some fight just to feel something, anything. But the sea doesn't let you stay bored for long. A storm comes out of nowhere, tearing through the rigging like paper. The ship tilts, groans, threatens to break apart. You cling to a rope with blistered hands, whispering the same prayer over and over. Please don't sink, please don't sink, please don't sink. You're soaked to the bone, teeth chattering, half certain this night will be your last. When the storm finally passes, you're alive, barely, and the work begins again. The rats never leave. They live better than you do, fat on grain, bold enough to run across your legs while you sleep. You stomp them when you can. Sometimes you eat them. Protein's protein, and a rat roasted over a bit of flame feels like a feast compared to another mouthful of wormy biscuit. But food, storms, and rats aren't the worst of it. No, the worst of it is sickness. A cough becomes a rattle, gums bleed, teeth loosen, jaws ache. Scurvy eats a man from the inside, makes him weak, makes him useless. And then comes the surgeon, if you can call him that. A man with no training, but plenty of tools, rusty knives, hooks, and a saw that looks like it's been used more on wood than flesh. His name doesn't matter. The men call him Gristle. You pray you never see him, but one morning you do. Your tooth aches so bad you can't chew, can't sleep, can't think. They drag you to his corner, sit you on a barrel, and he grins with blackened teeth worse than your own. Hold still, he says, and you know it won't matter if you do or don't. He pulls out a pair of iron pliers. You try not to shake. The crew gathers close, not out of kindness, but for entertainment. They want to hear you scream. There's no rum strong enough, no mercy quick enough. You bite down. He digs in, and the pain is like fire inside your skull. You hear the crunch, feel the tear, taste the blood. And when it's done, when you're light-headed and shaking, he pats your shoulder like he's done you a favor. The others laugh, clap, walk away. You spit red into the sea and tell yourself you'll survive, because out here survival is the only victory. And tomorrow the sea will ask you to prove it all over again.
He doesn't even pause to ask what's wrong. He just squints at your swollen face, shakes his head like he's seen this 100 times before, and mutters under his breath, "Rots deep." Then, without another word, he sets a pair of rusted iron tongs to heat over the flickering flame of a candle. That's your warning. That's all you get. Instinct takes over. You try to run, but he's quicker. His calloused hand shoots out, grabs your collar, and drags you back with the strength of a man who's done this too many times. Before you can fight, you're shoved down into an old barrel that doubles as the ship's chair. A rough stick is jammed between your teeth, and someone shoves a mug of rum into your hand. One burning swallow does nothing to ease the dread clawing at your chest. It doesn't numb the pain that's coming. It only makes your stomach twist and your heartbeat roar in your ears. The crew gathers around. They always do. On a ship, there's little entertainment, and someone else's misery counts as a show. They lean in, eyes glittering in the dim lamplight, waiting for the screams. And you do not disappoint. You howl before the tongs even touch your mouth. Gristle, cook, carpenter, bone setter, unwilling surgeon, isn't gentle. He never is. He jams the heated iron deep into your jaw, clamps down on the rotten tooth, and twists with all his weight. You buck against the barrel, flailing in blind panic, until rough hands seize your shoulders and pin you in place. The smell of hot iron mixes with your sweat. There's a sickening crunch, a wet pop, and then pain so sharp, so blinding, it feels like lightning splitting your skull. Tooth problems were one of the great hidden torments of life at sea. Weeks of chewing stone-hard biscuits, salted meat tougher than leather, no toothbrushes, no rinses, just rot. Gums swelled like bruises, cavities festered until the jaw itself began to blacken. In some journals from the time, sailors wrote of mouths so ruined that worms were crawling from the gums. It sounds like a sailor's tale, but it wasn't. The standard solution was cruel in its simplicity. Rip it out and hope you live. No anesthetic, no clean tools, just tongs and brute strength. Rum was the only mercy. Sometimes men died from the shock alone, sometimes from blood loss, and sometimes the infection that started in the tooth just burrowed deeper, creeping toward the brain, bringing fever, delirium, and a death no one could stop. You're lucky, or unlucky, depending on how you see it. You only black out for a while. When you wake, the taste of iron still floods your mouth. Your tongue runs over a bloody gap where a tooth used to be, and the crew has already lost interest. But the real danger hasn't even started. The next days are the true test. Fever comes first, rolling over you in waves until your shirt is soaked through. Your jaw swells grotesquely, puffing up like you're half dead already. The pain spreads, crawling behind your eyes, pulsing in your skull. Some of the men whisper about blood poisoning. Others say you're cursed. No one offers a cure, because out here, there isn't one. On land, toothache is misery. At sea, it's a death sentence waiting to happen.
You lie in your hammock, mouth swollen, drool soaking into the canvas, muttering half-delirious prayers to yourself. And honestly, you're a little surprised you've made it this far. Out here, survival feels less like skill and more like a cruel lottery. If the teeth don't kill you, the limbs might. Pirate life isn't just about rum, raids, and treasure maps. It's a brutal machine that chews through your body one rope pull at a time. Every day you're hauling lines thick as tree roots, climbing rigging with your bare hands, lugging barrels that weigh more than you do, or leaping across decks while pistols crack and steel flashes. And every single task comes with a price. A twisted ankle means you're crawling for weeks. A deep splinter? That tiny shred of wood can rot under your skin until your arm balloons, purple and throbbing, abscess swelling like a crab hiding under the flesh. But the big fear, the one every sailor dreads, amputation. Lose a finger? Maybe you'll still fight. Lose a hand? You're still alive, though half a man. Lose a leg? You get a nickname, a permanent limp, and the sea carves its mark into you forever, assuming you survive the sawing. You see your first amputation show 2 weeks later. A cannon misfires during a drill, practice, nothing more, and blasts a man's arm into a hanging mess of skin, bone, and shredded muscle. For a moment, he doesn't scream. He just stares, wide-eyed, at the thing dangling off his shoulder like it belongs to someone else. Then the pain hits, and his wail rips through the deck like a storm tearing sails. "Fetch Gristle!" someone shouts, and the crowd moves aside like they've been here before. Because they have. Gristle arrives with the surgical kit, if you can call it that, a roll of blood-stained cloth, a saw that stinks of old wood and older wombs, and a jug of rum so strong it feels like fire going down. That's the entire arsenal. No clean bandages, no antiseptic, no plan B. The patient is strapped down with ropes that once tied barrels. His eyes dart wildly, begging for mercy, but there isn't any. The decision is brutal and simple. Keep the arm and he dies. Cut it off and maybe he lives. That's it. That's the whole debate. The crew gathers again, drawn to the horror like moths to flame. You don't want to watch, you shouldn't watch, but you do. Everyone does. The saw bites through flesh with a wet, tearing crunch. It grinds on bone, a high, splintering screech that makes your teeth ache just hearing it. The man's screams are so raw, they sound less like a voice and more like an animal being slaughtered. And then it's over. Gristle hacks the arm free, tosses it overboard like garbage, and wipes his bloody palms on his trousers as if he'd just finished chopping meat for stew. The man survives, barely. He wakes hours later drenched in sweat, sobbing and laughing at the same time, caught somewhere between relief and madness. You can't decide which is worse. Historically, surgery at sea was grim, almost medieval. Pirate surgeons, when they existed at all, were often failed doctors, barbers, or carpenters who figured sawing a leg couldn't be so different from sawing a mast.
Wounds were cauterized with boiling oil or burning pitch. Flesh was sewn together with the same thread used to patch sails. Knives were cleaned by wiping them on trousers already stiff with blood. Sterilization? No one even knew the word. If you didn't die from the surgery itself, you still had to survive the fever that followed, the infection that crept like fire through your veins, and the fact that you were trapped on a floating wooden coffin swarming with rats that gnawed through bandages in the night. Historians still argue over how many pirates truly survived amputations. Some claim the survival rate was higher than you'd think, that men were tougher, more accustomed to pain. Others insist the legends exaggerate, that most who went under the saw never rose again. But one thing is certain, if you're under Gristle's blade, you're not betting on medicine, you're betting on luck, and luck is a fickle mistress. You've seen the proof walking the deck. The peg-legged man, clunking along with his whale-oil-polished limb, swears he used to be the fastest runner in the Caribbean. Now he limps, grimacing, telling stories to anyone who'll listen about the time he kicked a man off the plank, with his good leg, mind you. He laughs when he tells it. He has to. The others, they don't laugh. They stare off at the horizon, silent, hollow, as though the sea took more than flesh that day. And you start brushing your teeth with a rag dipped in rum just in case. You check your limbs each morning like their inventory. Arms, still there. Fingers, still wiggling. Legs, both attached. Good. Another day survived. Another day borrowed. Out here, that's the best you can hope for.